Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of How to Speedrun Anything. In this episode, we're looking at Celeste, an indie platformer that can currently be found on all major platforms. Soon after release, it quickly rose to popularity, even being nominated for Game of the Year at 2018's Game Awards, no small feat for an indie title. The premise of the game is simple. You have a total of 3 buttons to control it: jump, climb, and dash. While easy to say, movement in this game is both difficult and very powerful, and one can easily pick up tremendous amounts of speed with just a few button presses. We'll talk about that later, but first, let's talk about the run as a whole. Since its release in early 2018, the game has quickly become one of the most run games on speedrun.com, currently at 877 runs of any percent at the time of writing. Any percent will be the category focused on in this video because of its popularity, ease of access, and shorter length. The current world record is 27 minutes and 50.301 seconds by TGH. This was achieved on April 21st, 2019. Some quick stats about the category. The median time is around 49 minutes and 15 seconds, and a 29:08 is required for top 10. For my personal challenge, I'll be aiming for a time of 45 minutes or lower. Before getting into the run itself, I want to first quickly talk about some more advanced techniques that'll help bring times down greatly. However, as the main game was not made with these techs in mind, they are not necessary to use right off the bat. I highly recommend going through the game at a slower pace at first to understand the route, where to go, what to do, before mindlessly killing yourself trying fast strats that realistically only save a few seconds. This will be something I'll be repeating a lot throughout the video, as I feel like it's important for new runners. With that being said, let's talk about the 3 main techniques and extensions of those techniques used throughout the run. First up is the hyperdash. This is performed by inputting dash and jump at the same time or very close together, dash first, while holding down in the direction you want to go, and allows for a long, fast jump that can be chained together for incredible amounts of speed if done correctly. A variation of this is the extended hyperdash. When doing a regular hyperdash, if you delay the jump just a bit, you'll regain your dash in midair while still getting the speed and distance of a hyperdash. Following this is the wave dash. Similar to the extended hyperdash, a wave dash allows you to regain your dash midair. This is performed by first jumping, then dashing at an angle into the ground, then jumping again. You'll gain around the same momentum as a hyperdash as well. The main difference between a wave dash and an extended hyperdash is that a wave dash can be used on more narrow floors with greater effect, an example being here, where a wave dash can be used to get through the area, but you can't get enough distance on the ground for an extended hyper. For most cases in the run, these two are interchangeable unless otherwise specified, so use whatever works best for you. The last of the important techs is the wall bounce. This one is simple. If you dash upwards on a wall then jump, you'll bounce off the wall a lot higher. This allows for faster traversal of vertical surfaces, as well as getting across some gaps easier. There are some smaller techs that I haven't mentioned here because they only have 1 or 2 uses within the run. I'll mention them there, but these 3 are the most commonly used throughout the whole game. Before starting the general tutorial of the game, I just want to reiterate the theme of the series. This is aimed at beginning to lower level runners. So, I'll be skipping some of the harder strats as they're often just unnecessary and really easy to lose time attempting. These strats are going to be generally what works best for me. One of the best things about this game is that you can easily develop your own movement and strats to get through levels. If you're not worried about getting the world record, I recommend just refining what works best for you, and you won't have to worry about the absolute fastest, which are often the riskiest strats. With that out of the way, let's get on to the actual game. The prologue is the easiest and shortest chapter, if you want to call it that, in the run. It's very simple. Jump and climb around the obstacles and try not to let anything stop you. The first cutscene comes up on the 3rd screen, and I use a visual cue here, around the left side of the box, to skip the cutscene. If you're too early, you'll retry instead, killing you and sending you back to the beginning of the screen and probably causing a reset. A tip in general: be sure you're about to skip a cutscene before you accidentally die from hitting retry. After this, it's just a run to the end. To make this segment slightly faster, you can make really small jumps to increase your speed marginally. At the end of the segment, jump off the edge and skip the cutscene when Madeline is around the left side of the tree here. As of time of writing, the cutscene skip only exists on the most recent PC version of the game. If you're on any other platform or on an earlier version on PC, you'll have to wait through the dash cutscene. Now that we can dash, the game really begins. Forsaken City is fairly linear, and you'll probably just be going to the right or up. There are a few fast strats that can be easily applied. The first is a wave dash in this room. You'll be able to skip a bunch of spikes and move through much faster. There's another wave dash in this room, and one more in this room. This one is special because you'll need to grab onto the wall on the right, drop down, Wall jump off of the corner where the spikes can't get you, and dash to the end of the screen. This is a harder trick, but it saves a good amount of time in this room. The last trick involves what are called neutral jumps. Neutral jumps are a way of climbing walls without using stamina. To do this, you need to wall jump without holding any direction, and once you're off the wall, move back towards it. If you chain these together, you'll be able to climb up walls indefinitely. You can do it in this room to skip most of it, but I recommend mastering neutral jumps before attempting it. If you don't feel comfortable about doing a trick, don't do it. You'll save way more time in the long run doing a room slower, as opposed to dying 100 times trying to save 2 seconds. But I do highly recommend practicing the tricks outside of runs, because once you start to master one type of movement for tricks, you'll get so much better at all of them. Chapter 2, Old Site, is only a little more difficult than Chapter 1. It adds a few more mechanics, but overall is not the hardest chapter. After moving to the right and dropping down after spawning in, the first trick that you can do is a wave dash or extended hyper in this room, grabbing the dash crystal and going to the next room. You can do something similar in the next room, but it is a lot more difficult. After that, you can do a small skip after doing an extended hyperdash to the right, then dashing back up left after a certain point. This will let you skip the cutscene, and if you hold up and press dash afterwards, you'll go right up through the dream block. This is a very minor skip, as it only saves the time of a jump and dash, but it is fairly easy to do. Let's talk about dream blocks. These are the starry, jelly-like blocks that you can dash through. If you hit a wall through them, you die, and there's no way to alter your trajectory until you exit the block. That's their basic gimmick. You can also jump out of a dream block after exiting it, just pressing jump within the first few frames after leaving it. This will maintain some momentum from the block, as well as keep your dash. Jumping out of dream blocks is a good technique to go faster through some sections. You can also hyperdash out of them, but that's rarely used, if ever, in an any % run at this level. Moving through the dream blocks to go as fast as possible, retrace your steps back to near the beginning and go up. Moving through the section quickly is deceptively difficult. What I found best was up right, down right, right, up right, left. After this room, there's another cutscene. This will begin the battle and chase. She follows your path 2 seconds after you, so move quickly and try not to cross paths that you've already made. After making your way through the next few screens, you'll arrive at this one. There's actually a hidden shortcut that you'll need to dash into to access. Jump on the disappearing blocks to make them disappear faster, and fall down, avoiding the spikes on the way. The next section is the hardest of this area. I'll show the way I do it, but do whatever works most consistently for you. My way involves dashing in between 2 of the clones and is somewhat risky and slow. It's not the fastest way, but it works best for me. Once you're out of that, just use combinations of hypers and regular dashes to get to the end of the level. The proper movement here is very tricky and requires a lot of practice, so just get through as fast as you can. The only thing to really note in this section is to be high enough vertically through all these dream blocks in this room, so you don't end up hitting a wall after one of the dream blocks in the middle. Compared to the past 2 chapters, there's a huge difficulty spike in Chapter 3, so be prepared. This chapter introduces enemies that I'll lovingly call fuzzies. They operate on cycles, which reset on the loading of a room. However, if you die in a room, the cycle will be a bit out of sync, because it takes a bit of time between the room loading and your movement. Because of this, it's important to figure out different strats for these death cycles. Anyways, there's a lot to go over in this chapter. After this room, jump and dash diagonally upright through the screen transition. Because transitions give you an extra dash no matter where you are on the screen, you can bypass the small platforming segment to get the key. You can just dash up to the platform, climb over to get the key, and unlock the door, entering the hotel. In this room, you can use an extended hyperdash to get to the last platform a little faster. After going up to get the next key, start a hyper to keep its momentum into the next room. If you do this properly, you'll be able to clear the vertical post on the bottom and get to the platform. From this platform, just extended hyper over to the ending. Make your way through the hotel until you get to this section with the coins that unlock the door. It is fairly linear to get here, so you shouldn't get too lost. After this room, you'll land on a moving platform. Once it moves down enough, you can wave dash to the end, skipping some of the room. If you're fast enough to unlock the next door, you can hyper in between the fuzzies, but this is tricky and depends on getting to the door as fast as possible. After this, you'll enter the portion of the stage known as Huge Mess. The first maze in this section is really difficult to do quickly, so just use dashes properly to get through it as fast as you can. After talking to Oshiro and skipping the cutscene, go to the bottom right. Be sure it's the opening facing down, as the one facing the right won't net you any progress. If you bring hyper momentum into the next room, you can get the coin a lot faster, and then just dash to the end. The best way through this next room is to extended hyper off the left, then jump over the fuzzies and fall to the bottom. This is tricky, so don't be afraid of waiting a cycle to ensure you don't die. In the next room, wait just a bit, hyper, and move on. The next room introduces a new tech called a spike jump. To put it simply, if Madeline is moving in the same direction as spikes are pointing, you can't die to them. We can abuse this by getting a wall jump off the spike wall, like so. If you can't do this or don't want to, you can use the stack of towels in the middle as a shortcut through the room. After hitting the button, go left to meet with Oshiro again. The next pathway to go through is in the top right of the maze. This route is made as to minimize travel distance to talk to Oshiro in between segments. In this room, you can carry hyper momentum into it to get through the whole segment quickly. A few rooms later, you can again carry momentum to skip half of the room. If you don't have any momentum, you can easily extend it hyper to get to the dash crystal on the left. Next button, next Oshiro cutscene. Move to the right below where you just started the second segment. In this room, I find that doing a wave dash gets me through the fuzzies easiest. Again, doing a hyper here gets you through all 3 fuzzies quickly, just don't forget to turn back at the end. In the next room, if you just hold left upon entering, you can make it under the moving fuzzy on the left wall. Just make sure to fast fall by holding down afterwards. Get the key at the end and this section is complete. Climbing the elevator shaft is easiest if you start with a wall bounce, as to not lose much stamina. The next few rooms are difficult, so going slow is encouraged as to not die, as usual. After skipping a cutscene, there is a trick that I won't go into called a demo dash that can get you through the wall of fuzzies. It's pixel and just about frame perfect, so it's generally not worth going for unless you know how to do it. I'll leave a link in the description to a separate tutorial describing it in depth. When you get the key at the end of this room, pause and select retry. This will teleport you back to the beginning of the room and you'll keep the key. The last room in the hotel is intimidating, but with the right movement there should be little risk. The next section, the Oshiro chase, is the most difficult part of the chapter. However, there's not too much special apart from the general hyperdashing and some wave dashes, so keep your movement safe and don't panic. Crouching under Oshiro is a good way to not be killed in most instances, and you can jump on his head to replenish your dash. It's important to not die in the later rooms as they take a lot of time to get to the end. After completing the Nightmarish Chapter 3, Golden Ridge is a more relaxing, shorter chapter overall. The first part of this stage is fairly straightforward. The only thing to note are the hypers in this room to get to the cutscene. Some important things to note about the wind. Dashes are not affected by it, so you can dash and therefore hyperdash at full speed. This is important for completing rooms quickly, as you could probably tell. With the bubbles, you can press dash to start them faster, which makes rooms like this go by faster. Try and take hyper momentum into this next room. You'll be able to go under the platform and dash to a pink cloud, similar to what was done in Chapter 3. In the room with the coins, it's possible to backtrack on the right coin by doing a precise jump, but it's fairly easy to die and climbing up doesn't lose that much time in comparison to respawning. In the room with the long climb, wall bounce up and just climb up. You'll run out of stamina, but the wind will keep you against the wall, negating the effect. In this next room, it's possible to skip the guided block with a spike jump, but this saves about 2 seconds for first try only, so really not worth unless you're consistent at it. If you dash up through the screen transition at the top in the next room, you can wall bounce off to the left. Repeat this on the left wall past the spikes to skip the room entirely. Similarly, you can wall bounce off of each of these guided blocks to skip this room as well. Hop on the guided block in the next room and wait. You can extended hyperdash at this red rock to make it to the end, but the consequences are a long wait again. With the wind returning, try and hyper wherever possible to avoid the slowdown. In this room, you can hyper to the cloud, extended hyper on it, and then dash to the end of the room. This is surprisingly not as difficult as it looks, but I'd still recommend the intended route at first. Here, it's possible to wave dash on the tops of these pillars to get through faster, but this is difficult because the width of the pillar is only a single tile. If you are to do this, this needs to be a wave dash. On the guided block on the left, you can extended hyper to the guided block on the right. Just dash up and finish the room. In the next room, grab the block on the left and move right. You'll need to jump on the block in the way to get rid of it and then wait until the end. Grab the coin to move the gate and wait for the guided block to show up. In the next rooms, just be wary of where you're landing. What works best in the last room here for me is waiting a cycle, then jumping on the spring right before the wind picks up again. This will get you to the wall on the right. Wait for the wind to die down, and then take the bubbles to the top. This will begin the heavy wind section, easily the most difficult of the chapter. Use dashes or hypers to get through the next section. Dash to the moving block, fall to the coin, and jump back up on the block. Snowballs will soon be your mortal enemy, but once you get a feel for when they spawn, it's fairly easy to move out of the way. Get through these next rooms however you can. In the last 3 bubbles, go up right and then dash right into the next one and repeat to the end. Quickly go through the fast wind section and you're done. Welcome back to a difficulty spike. Chapter 5 is very maze-like, so I'll be going through the whole chapter here. Starting off, skip the cutscene and move to the right. Keep moving to the right in the next room and go in the door with the particles coming out of it. Hop in the red bubble and hold right. After hitting the button, dash down right and continue. Here, you can either carry a hyper momentum or just go into the bubble directly next to you. Go down right, and then up in the last bubble. In this room, you can either go left and do the intended route by traveling further left, going in the bubble, then going all the way right, or just hyperdash off of the middle moving block through the spikes. Go through the next room, collect the key, hit the button, and drop down where you originally came from. Moving right more, skip this cutscene and go up over where Theo was and hit the button. Next room, go straight up and travel along the top into the next room. To skip the puzzle here, dash into the floor near the ledge, jump to the moving block as it moves back right, drop down, and dash to the end. Go straight to the right and enter the bubble. There's a shortcut in this room that allows you to not need a key. After going in the bubble at the right of the room, go back left. Under the second spike block, go straight up and then up again. This will get you into the passageway at the top of the room, where you can just hyper off to the right. The last section is fairly long, so once you get to the end, be safe about your bubble movement. Don't forget that you can press dash to start the bubble earlier. In the next room, dash up right, then up through the top, into the bubble and up again. After hitting the ceiling, hit each button and skip the cutscene once Madeline disappears behind the curtain. Retrying here wastes a lot of time, so don't do it. In the Seeker section, just follow the movement shown. This route maximizes dashing as the Seeker. When you hit Madeline, mash jump to get through the death animation a little faster. Next room, just dash off the platform and fall to the bottom. Hyper through the next parts, skipping a total of 4 cutscenes. For the next rooms, watch out for carrying momentum into them, as there's spikes very close to the beginning of the room. Make your way through the next segment. After hitting the button, move into the first secret room. If you drop down to this tiny ledge on the left, you can use 2 hypers to clear the room easily. In the next room, if you drop down, then dash upright as the Seeker approaches you, it'll hit the first coin for you. Get the one on the bottom and move on. The next few rooms are very straightforward, just don't get hit by the Seeker. In this section, before dropping down, grab the wall that's right in front of you until the Seeker hits the coin. From there, drop down and grab the others. The next rooms are difficult to do quickly, so just don't get hit and make your way through. After the last room, go up and move up through the bubbles. After going up on the last one, move up and left into the room all the way on the left. In this long room, we'll be doing something called Search Skip. This removes the need to get 2 keys in this whole section and saves about 2 minutes. What we'll be doing here is called a reverse extended hyper. It's functionally the same as a regular extended hyper, but it starts in the reverse direction to where you're going. To do it, position yourself on the left part of this part of the floor, dash to the right, near the end, jump and hold left, and then dash up left to clear the spikes and move on. This is definitely a trick worth doing due to the massive amount of time save, and it really isn't difficult. The next rooms are really straightforward, just long. Wall bounces in these 2 rooms help save some time, and keeping hyper momentum in the next 2 rooms is also beneficial. There's a few ways to do the next room. You can grab onto the breakable block, then drop when the Seeker hits it, climb back up and activate the key. A different way is to grab the bottom of the block, then when the Seeker comes close, jump. If you do it right, you can jump off the Seeker and the block will also break. It's possible to just hit the Seeker and not hit the block. In that case, just try again. From there, unlock the gate and enter the Theo section. Navigating while holding Theo is fairly difficult and takes a long time to learn. There's a lot of movement tech that you can apply to Theo as he has some interesting momentum properties, but I usually just dash jump. The Seekers in these rooms are going to be extremely annoying, but try and dash around them if possible. You can activate the buttons by dashing into them, throwing Theo onto them, or standing on them while holding Theo. After making your way through the Seeker rooms, throw Theo on the moving platform, dash to activate the gate, and continue. Throw Theo on the next platform, dash down, and use the momentum to take both of you to the end completely safely. Be careful about dashing in the beginning of this room, as it might mess up the moving platform and it'll be more of an effort to move Theo around. You can actually kill a Seeker if you crush it with a moving block, but that's probably not necessary unless you really want to. Once you get to the edge on this platform, throw Theo without jumping, then dash straight up. Navigate to the end without dashing. I don't really have much advice in this last room, just make it to the end safely. In the last room of the chapter, dash through the shockwaves while carrying Theo to the end if you can, as dashing will negate the pushback of the shockwaves. Throw Theo into the giant eye and you're done. Chapter 6 introduces the feather. If you're on a controller with an analog stick, you can apply 360-degree motion to this feather. Because of this, you'll want to turn as shallow as possible. Anything over 17 degrees in any direction makes you lose speed, so try and stay as straight as possible. At the top of the screen, skip the cutscene and start the next section. In the lake, dash as much as possible over to the right. Hit the angry block to the left and then up. These angry blocks are also known as Kevin blocks, named after the sound designer of the game. Follow the feather path up for these next few rooms. Hit the Kevin block to the left, jump up at the top, and continue to the next section. If you're confident in your neutral jumps, you can go to the right and just climb the wall with them here. If not, just grab the feather in the bottom left and proceed up as normal. After hitting the block on the right, climb up to the top and wait until you hit the breakable block. After this, jump back down and hit the block to the right again. It's possible to hyper off the Kevin block at the end of this room, but the odds of you dying in the next room are very high. Cancel the feather into a dash into the next Kevin block, avoid the spikes, and move on. From here, it's your choice whether to go to the top path or bottom, as the time difference isn't super significant. I typically use the bottom path, so we'll do it here. Regardless of where you go, in the next room go to the top right entrance. In the next room, you can extended hyper to avoid the bumpers. Take momentum into the next room, dash to the platform to skip this bumper as well. Go to the top right entrance, activate the Kevin block, and extended hyper to the end. The route for these breakable blocks is down, right, right. Go to the top right after this next room again and navigate through the rooms. It's possible to demo dash here under the spikes on top of the Kevin block, and this one is much easier than the one done in Chapter 3. All you have to do is tap down, then dash very soon after. This will change Madeline's dash hitbox to be as tall as her crouch hitbox, and it will let you go under the spikes to move on. If you don't want to do this, just move around the Kevin block as normal. Go to the top right as usual. In the long feather room, replenish the feather with these two bubbles. Make your way to the end of the next room, being careful of the bumpers, and hyper into the cutscene. Keep hypering off the platforms until you fall in the middle of the spikes. Fast fall by holding down, then hit the bottom of the Kevin block. Grab the left side of it and hold down. You'll fall at the same speed as the block and reach the ground as fast as possible. The next segment has 3 shortcuts. The first 2 have setups, but the third doesn't. For the first one, you can grab the wall then fall without dashing. After you clear the spikes, dash to the right and hit the wall. Fall again without any other inputs. The third shortcut is on the left and requires you to fall, move right a bit, and fall further. After you splash down, move to the right. You can dash down in the water, but the physics are a bit slippery, so be careful to not hit any spikes. If you need to, just regularly swim and don't dash at all. After hitting the next Kevin block, jump over the 3 spikes and wait. After the 5th time the screen moves, you can hyper into the next room. This will start the battle and fight. There's honestly not much I can say about this fight, as I found a lot of the movement consists of what you think works best. Of course, it might not be the fastest, but there's a lot to take in for this fight that I'd rather not tell you to do some things that work well for me but are obviously slow. I'm also mostly skipping over this because there's really not one set of movement I do in the fight, a lot of it just turns into winging it as to not die. One thing I will mention that's really important is that Battlein will always knock you back and replenish your dash, so dash back towards where she's going. Also, her bullets' hitboxes have somewhat of a delayed start to them, so it's possible to hit her right when the shot comes out without dying. The lasers have a lot of startup and lock on early, so it's easier to escape those as well. Once the fight is over, you'll level up and get a second dash. Use this to move upwards as fast as possible, grabbing the purple orb and finishing the level. Almost done. The summit is the longest chapter overall and takes up about a quarter of the run. I hope you didn't forget any tech from previous chapters, as they'll all be back here for one last round. 0 meters is very simple. Just make your way through and carry hyper momentum through some of the transitions to get through the rooms faster. 500 meters is also straightforward. There's a few tricks you can do, including a dash through the top of this room to skip getting the dash crystal. For the room after this, follow this movement to unlock the door fastest. Other than these, the level is fairly painless. You can skip some of the falling snow blocks by dashing under them, but you can also grab them, wait for them to fall, and hit the spring. In the last room, grab onto the moving platform when necessary, and then take the purple orb to the next section. 1K is the last of the short segments and brings back dream blocks. Don't forget to jump afterwards to maintain momentum. Coming into this room, go up the left side and continue to the top using this movement. After this, just make it to the end. 1500 brings back the fuzzies, and they're a lot less evil than they were in Chapter 3. Just play it safe and make it through their cycles. If you're not confident with this room, just drop down, move to the right, and go into the next room. It's a little slower, but much safer. At first, this key looks daunting to grab without dying, but you can just dash upright then down right when the cycle's right. These next two rooms are easily the hardest. There's some shortcuts to use, but again, play it safe and try not to panic. Once you go outside, just dash over the fuzzies and wait cycles if you need it. Getting back into the hotel, just move along until the purple orb section. Again, just don't panic, 2 dashes will easily get you to where you need to be. 2K is somewhat long but also very easy. There's not much to this section, just move to the right. In this room, where the wind is really strong, extended hyper to the bubble, dash twice to the spring, then dash right twice into the end. This will prevent accidental dashes while grabbing onto walls and makes everything less painful. Go through the fast wind section and wrap up the purple orb section. You can go a bit faster in this by dashing directly out of the orbs, but it's safest to wait until you fall to where you need to be. 2500, unlike its chapter counterpart, is surprisingly easy, just somewhat long. There's really not too much special about this section until this room, where there's a skip that you can do involving a spike jump. Do a wall jump on the left side, hold jump for a bit without inputting any direction, then jump again off the right side. If you get the spike jump, just dash twice up and grab the key. If you don't want to do this, just drop down and grab the key as intended, using the red bubble from the bottom. Regardless of how you do it, retry after grabbing the key to get to the door a little faster. In the next room, don't forget to dash into the red bubble to activate the moving blocks. From there, the rest of the room is simple, just don't get crushed on the leftmost block. The next room is very easy, just press dash when in the bubble to start faster. In this room, you can wave dash and skip the moving blocks, but this is fairly precise, so just grab the left block, wait a bit, then jump to the right. Move through the next room, hitting the buttons as you go. Finally, the last room. This is straightforward, just make sure that you save a dash at this point to get to the end. 3K, only 30 flags separate you from the end of the run. To climb up the first part, don't forget to use wall climbs to get up faster, but not too many as to run out of stamina. 4 climb jumps will instantly make you run out of stamina, and then you won't be able to climb up any further. The next part is the downdraft section, and wall bounces are really useful here. Make your way up to flag 23, hyper to the falling platform and jump up the wall. 22 is also a tricky flag, just make sure you know where you're about to dash. At the end of flag 20, after all the dash crystals, be prepared to potentially grab the wall just in case your dashes don't reach the purple orb. The updraft portion has a few challenges that require you to manage your dashes wisely. 17 is the first example of this, so make sure you have 1 dash before going to 16. On flag 14, extended hyper to the spring. The end of this flag is intended to be a stamina puzzle, as you're supposed to run out of stamina at the end, but if you don't waste time grabbing the walls before the last one, you'll be fine. 13 is a long flag, just be patient and make sure you're collecting the coins. Hit the spring, hold left, and then dash up to flag 12. You can neutral jump to skip the spikes jutting out of the wall on the right, but I'd recommend just grabbing the dash crystal and finishing it that way. Flag 9 is difficult, but there's nothing special about it, just make sure you're under the gaps in the spikes before you dash. For flag 7, when you get the dash crystal, you can dash up twice, grab the wall, and repeat. This makes the climb much easier and faster. On flag 6, grab the feather and go straight up, ignoring the first cloud. There is one that you can reach with 2 dashes afterwards. It's possible to avoid collecting flag 5 if you hold the direction after landing, so make sure that you activate it if you feel you need it. It's not required to go through all the flags, they're just checkpoints in case you die. In flag 4, just make sure you keep a dash before the spring to get over the spike column. Same with flag 3, save a dash to get the feather. When using the feather, you can buffer a climb input out of it, so grab the wall without dashing. Dash right, then left to get the next feather. Out of this one, you can dash straight to flag 2, but you can also grab the wall for a more accurate jump. Flag 2 is difficult and long, just make sure you're saving your dashes and not using up too much stamina. After passing flag 1, it's just a rush to the end. Make sure you skip the cutscene at the end as fast as possible, as your final in-game time won't end until then. After that, congrats, you've completed the run. In the epilogue, go to the house, skip the cutscene, and see your death total. If it's your first run, I can nearly guarantee you'll never see a number that high again. To put it simply, Celeste is a really good game. Even if you aren't interested in speedrunning it due to some of the tech required, I still recommend playing this game casually. If you don't skip all the cutscenes, it contains some powerful messages as well. If you haven't picked this game up, do it. It's a steal at $20 and available on every modern platform. This game was made with speedrunners in mind. Most of the techniques mentioned in this video are actually intended by the developers and are in fact required to complete some of the B and C sides, extra levels unlocked through gameplay. If you look through the changelog of the game, you'll see some speedrunner-friendly updates, such as the prologue cutscene being skippable and the inclusion of a speedrun timer. Some of the developers that worked on the game were even on the couch for a Games Done Quick run of the game. So, to rate this game on a speedrun level, I'll need to talk about a few things. The skill floor, skill ceiling, difficulty of the game, and overall rating. First, the skill floor. I mentioned many times throughout the video that if you don't want to do a difficult strat, you don't need to. As such, it's very accessible to runners of all kinds. There's a total of 1 skip in the game that saves a significant amount of time, and it's not frame or pixel perfect in any way. Almost all of the time saves come down to optimization, which leads me to the skill ceiling. The tech ceiling in this game is incredibly high. Strats thought to be tasks only have been implemented in the run with ease, and a top level run looks completely different from mid or even mid-high level run. There's so much room to grow and improve at almost any level in the speedrun. For difficulty, the game is hard. Even with the low skill floor, the game by its very nature is difficult. However, it's beatable. Anybody can beat this game with enough persistence. This is even something the game addresses, Madeline's persistence to climb the mountain. It reflects on the player playing or speedrunning the game. You'll beat the game if you try hard enough and improve, which is something I love about the game. My overall rating of this game is an easy 5 stars due to everything I've talked about, and the fact that this is probably the only game I've played in the past 2 months. As for my personal goal I talked about in the beginning of the video, I passed the 45-minute mark in about 2 weeks. Since then, I've been still running the game to push my PB down as much as possible. Currently, it's at 40 minutes and 20 seconds, and I'm trying hard to get sub 40, then who knows. It's certainly a game I'm interested in playing further and getting better at. All of my PBs are always on my YouTube channel if you want to check those out as well. Big shoutouts to the resources I used to learn this game myself, including Benteezy's full in-depth guides for the whole game. Links to that are also in the description. They are super helpful if you want to get past my introduction and properly get good at the game. If you made it this far, I thank you for watching all the way to the end. I'm still experimenting with what I want to do with the series, so please let me know if you enjoyed the pace of the content, what was in it, and what I did with it. This was not easy to make, and any feedback is much appreciated for any part of the video or series as a whole. As always, feel free to follow me on the social medias that I'm on, and links to everything are in the description. Thanks so much for watching, and see you soon.